When my daughter told me not to come to her wedding, I felt my world collapse. But what happened 2 days later changed everything between us forever. I'm glad to have you here today. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this has reached. I never imagined those words would come from my own daughter's mouth. Mom, I don't want you at my wedding. The silence that followed felt like it stretched for hours, though it was probably only seconds. I was standing in my kitchen, still wearing my gardening gloves, dirt under my fingernails from the roses I'd been tending. The same roses I'd planted when Sarah was born 26 years ago. The phone call had started normally enough. Sarah's voice was bright, excited even, as she talked about the final wedding preparations. The flowers were ordered, the cake was perfect, and her dress fit like a dream. I was listening with that special kind of joy only a mother knows, already planning what I'd wear to see my baby girl walk down the aisle. Then, everything changed. Actually, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Her tone shifted, became careful, measured. Marcus and I have been talking, and we think it would be better if you didn't come to the wedding. I set down the watering can I'd been holding, my hands suddenly unsteady. What do you mean, sweetheart? Is this about the venue capacity? Because I can help with that. No, Mom, it's not about space. Sarah's voice was getting firmer now, more resolved. It's about you, about how you've been acting since Marcus and I got engaged. The words hit me like physical blows. How I'd been acting. I thought back over the past year since they'd announced their engagement. I'd been nothing but supportive, hadn't I? I'd helped with venue hunting, spent hours looking at wedding dresses online, offered to pay for the flowers when their budget got tight. I don't understand, I managed to whisper. What did I do wrong? You question everything, Mom. Every decision we make, you have an opinion about. The venue isn't good enough. The caterer is too expensive. Marcus isn't ambitious enough. You make me feel like nothing I choose is right. I felt like I was drowning. This wasn't how I saw myself at all. I was being helpful. I was sharing my experience. I was trying to make sure my daughter had the perfect wedding she deserved. Sarah, honey, I was just trying to help. I want everything to be beautiful for you. But it's not your wedding, Mom. It's mine and Marcus's. And every time we try to make a decision together, you swoop in with suggestions that sound more like demands. Marcus feels like you don't respect him. And honestly, I'm starting to feel the same way. The accusation stung worse than anything she could have said. Not respect Marcus? I'd gone out of my way to include him in family dinners, to ask about his work, to treat him like the son I'd never had. That's not true, I protested. I love Marcus. I just want what's best for both of you. What you think is best, Mom, not what we think is best. Sarah's voice cracked slightly, and I could hear she was crying now. Yesterday, when we were at the florist, you completely took over. You started rearranging our bouquet choices, telling the florist that our color scheme wouldn't work, suggesting completely different flowers than what we'd picked. Marcus just stood there, looking embarrassed, while you planned our wedding for us. The memory came flooding back, but it looked different now through Sarah's eyes. I'd thought I was being helpful, using my experience to guide them away from what I saw as costly mistakes, but to them, I'd been controlling, dismissive of their choices. I was trying to save you money, I said weakly. Those lilies you wanted were so expensive, and the roses would have looked just as beautiful. But we didn't want roses, Mom. We wanted lilies. They're Marcus's grandmother's favorite flower. She's 93 and probably won't see another family wedding. But you didn't ask about that. You just decided what would be better and started making changes. I sank into my kitchen chair, feeling older than I ever had before. How had I gotten this so wrong? When had my help become interference? When had my love started feeling like control? Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I just wanted everything to be perfect for you. I know, Mom. I know you love me. But your version of perfect and our version of perfect are different things. And it's our wedding, not yours. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. But the damage was done. By the time we hung up, it was clear that Sarah and Marcus had made their decision. I would not be at my daughter's wedding, the most important day of her life, and I'd been uninvited. I sat in that kitchen chair until the sun set, replaying every interaction I'd had with them over the past year. The engagement party, where I'd rearranged the seating chart because I thought it would flow better. The dress shopping trip, where I'd pointed out every flaw in the gown Sarah loved and pushed her toward the one I preferred. The dinner, where I'd interrupted Marcus while he was telling a story about his family to correct a detail that didn't even matter. Each memory was like looking at myself in a funhouse mirror. Distorted and ugly, I'd become the overbearing mother-in-law before Marcus was even officially my son-in-law. I'd turn my daughter's joy into stress, her excitement into anxiety. That night, I called my sister, Linda. She lived 3 states away, but we'd always been close. I told her everything, expecting sympathy, expecting her to tell me that Sarah was being dramatic, that I was just being a caring mother. Instead, Linda was quiet for a long time after I finished talking. "Rachel," she finally said, "do you remember when I got married to Tom?" Of course I remembered. Linda's wedding had been beautiful, small, but elegant. "What about it? Do you remember what you told me about my dress?" I felt a chill run down my spine. I did remember. I told Linda that the dress she'd chosen made her look washed out, that she should consider something with more color, something that would photograph better. "And do you remember what you said about the venue?" Another memory surfaced. I'd suggested that the garden party setting was too casual, that a church wedding would be more appropriate for our family. "Linda, I was just trying to help." "I know you were, honey, just like you were trying to help Sarah. But sometimes help feels like criticism, especially when it's about something as personal as a wedding." The truth was settling around me like a heavy blanket. This wasn't the first time. This was a pattern I'd been blind to for years. I thought I was being helpful, supportive, involved, but really, I was being controlling. "What do I do now?" I asked Linda, my voice breaking. "How do I fix this?" "You give them space. You respect their decision, even though it hurts. And maybe, if you're really ready to change, you figure out how to love them without trying to manage them." After I hung up with Linda, I walked through my house, looking at the photos on every surface. Sarah as a baby, as a toddler, in her school plays, at graduation, with Marcus when they first started dating. In every photo, she was smiling, happy, full of life. When had I stopped seeing that joy and started seeing problems that needed fixing? The wedding was in 5 days. 5 days for my daughter to marry the man she loved, and I wouldn't be there to see it. But something Linda had said stuck with me. If I was really ready to change, maybe this wasn't the end of the story. Maybe this was the beginning of learning how to be the mother Sarah needed, not the mother I thought she needed. The next morning, I woke up with a decision burning in my chest. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could change what happened next. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a yellow legal pad, and I started writing. Not a letter of defense or explanation, but something I'd never given Sarah before, a real apology. I wrote about the florist incident, acknowledging how I'd steamrolled over their choices. I wrote about every wedding decision, where I'd inserted my opinion as if it were fact. I wrote about the deeper truth that was hardest to admit, that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped seeing Sarah as a capable adult and started seeing her as someone who needed my constant guidance. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I called Marcus directly. His voice was cautious when he answered. "Hi, Mrs. Chen. Marcus, I need to apologize to you. Not through Sarah, not with her listening. Just to you." I took a shaky breath. "I've been treating you like you weren't good enough for my daughter, and that was wrong. You make her happy in ways I never could. And instead of celebrating that, I've been trying to fix things that weren't broken." There was silence on the other end for so long, I thought he might have hung up. "Mrs. Chen," he finally said, his voice softer now. "I never wanted Sarah to uninvite you. I know how much you mean to her. But you supported her decision because she was crying every night after wedding planning sessions. She felt like nothing she chose was right, like she was disappointing everyone, no matter what she did. That's not how a bride should feel 3 weeks before her wedding." The image of my daughter crying herself to sleep because of my behavior made my stomach clench. I was trying to help her avoid mistakes. But they weren't mistakes, Mrs. Chen. They were choices. Different choices than you might make. But they were ours. Marcus paused. "Sarah loves you so much. She talks about you all the time, about how strong you are, how you raised her to be independent. But then, when it came to the wedding, it felt like you didn't trust that independence you'd given her." His words hit me like a revelation. I had raised Sarah to be strong, to make her own decisions, to trust her own judgment. And then, the moment she wanted to exercise those qualities, I'd swooped in to override them. "What can I do to fix this?" I asked. "Honestly, I think the space is good right now. Sarah needs to know that her decisions matter, that her wedding can be what she wants it to be, without having to defend every choice." After we hung up, I looked at the letter I'd written. It was full of good intentions, but Marcus was right. Sarah needed space, not more words from me, even apologetic ones. So I did the hardest thing I'd ever done. I respected her decision completely. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't drive by their apartment or show up at the venue. I didn't send the letter. Instead, I spent those 5 days really looking at my relationship with my daughter and facing some uncomfortable truths about myself. I'd been so afraid of Sarah making mistakes that I'd forgotten to trust the person I'd raised her to be. I'd been so focused on my vision of her perfect life that I'd stopped seeing what actually made her happy. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early and tended to my garden. The roses were blooming beautifully, just like they had every year for the past 26 years. As I worked, I thought about Sarah getting ready for her big day. I pictured her in her dress, the one I'd criticized, but that had made her eyes light up when she first tried it on. I imagined Marcus waiting at the altar, probably nervous but excited. I wanted to be sad, and part of me was, but mostly, I felt something unexpected. Pride. Pride that my daughter was strong enough to set boundaries with me. Pride that she'd found someone who supported her decisions and made her happy. Pride that she was building a life on her own terms, even when those terms were different from what I would have chosen. Around noon, I was repotting some herbs when my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, and my heart nearly stopped. Was something wrong? Had she changed her mind about wanting me there? "Mom?" Her voice was shaky, different from our last conversation. "Sarah, sweetheart, what's wrong? Are you okay? I'm at the salon getting my hair done, and I keep thinking about you, about how you're not going to be there when I walk down the aisle." She was crying now. Marcus keeps telling me it's okay, that this is what I wanted. But Mom, I don't know if it is anymore. I closed my eyes, fighting every instinct to rush in with solutions. What are you feeling, honey? I'm feeling like I made this decision when I was angry and hurt, and now I'm about to get married without my mother there. And yes, you were being controlling and overwhelming, but you're still my mom. You're still the person who taught me how to braid my hair and drove me to soccer practice and helped me with my college applications. My throat was tight with unshed tears. Sarah, you made the right decision. You needed to protect your wedding from my interference, and you did that. But I don't want to protect my wedding from you, Mom. I want to share it with you. I just want you to be there as my mother, not as the wedding planner who didn't get hired. We both laughed through our tears at that image. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days, I said, and I realized that I forgot the most important thing. This isn't about me at all. It's about you and Marcus starting your life together. And if you want me there just to love you and celebrate with you, nothing would make me happier. Really, you won't try to rearrange the centerpieces or tell the photographer how to do his job. I promise, I will sit in my assigned seat, eat whatever food you chose, and dance to whatever music you picked. And I will be the proudest mother in that room, watching my daughter marry the man who makes her happy. There was a pause, and then Sarah's voice came through clear and determined. Mom, will you please come to my wedding? The drive to the wedding venue was a blur of tears and determination. I had exactly 3 hours to get ready and make it to the church. My hands shook as I pulled my best dress from the closet. The navy blue one with the pearl buttons that I'd bought months ago specifically for this day. It still had the tags on it. As I did my makeup in record time, I kept repeating the promise I'd made to Sarah. I would be there as her mother. Nothing more, nothing less. No opinions, no suggestions, no helpful corrections. Just love. I arrived at the church with 20 minutes to spare. The parking lot was full of cars I recognized, friends and family members who'd been part of Sarah's life for years. I took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance, my heart pounding with each step. Marcus's mother, Helen, was standing near the door greeting guests. When she saw me, her expression shifted to something between surprise and concern. Rachel, she said carefully, I didn't know you were coming. Last-minute change of plans, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah asked me to be here. Helen's face softened immediately. Oh, thank goodness. She's been asking about you all morning. She's in the bridal suite if you want to see her before the ceremony. I followed Helen's directions down a hallway, lined with photographs of other couples who'd married in this church. Each smiling face reminded me of what this day was really about. Love, commitment, the beginning of something beautiful. I knocked softly on the bridal suite door. Sarah, it's Mom. The door flew open, and there was my daughter in her wedding dress. The dress I'd criticized for being too simple, too modern, not traditional enough. But seeing her in it now, with her hair swept up and her face glowing with happiness and nerves, she looked absolutely perfect. Mom, she breathed, and then she was in my arms, careful not to crush her dress, but holding me tight anyway. You look beautiful, sweetheart, absolutely radiant. I'm so glad you're here. I was terrified you wouldn't make it in time. I pulled back to look at her face. This woman who'd grown from the little girl in my garden to someone strong enough to stand up to her own mother when necessary. I wouldn't miss this for the world. But Sarah, before we go out there, I need you to know something. I'm here as your guest today. Whatever happens, however things go, I'm not going to interfere or try to fix anything. This is your day, exactly as you and Marcus planned it. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Thank you, Mom. That means everything to me. A soft knock interrupted us. 5 minutes, ladies, came a voice from outside. Sarah's matron of honor, her college roommate Jessica, peeked her head in. Ready for this, bride? As we made our way toward the sanctuary, I caught glimpses of all the details Sarah and Marcus had chosen. The lilies I'd tried to talk them out of were everywhere, creating cascades of white and yellow that took my breath away. They were perfect, absolutely perfect for them. I took my seat in the front row, right where the mother of the bride was supposed to sit. The church was filling up with people who loved Sarah and Marcus, all here to celebrate their union. I looked around at the decorations, the flowers, the elegant simplicity of it all, and felt a wave of pride wash over me. This was exactly what Sarah had wanted, and it was beautiful. The music started, and everyone stood as the wedding party began their procession. Marcus appeared at the altar, looking handsome and nervous in his charcoal gray suit. When his eyes found mine in the crowd, he smiled and nodded, a gesture of forgiveness and welcome that made my throat tight with emotion. Then the bridal march began, and everyone turned towards the back of the church. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her arm linked with her father's. My ex-husband David looked proud and emotional as he prepared to walk our daughter down the aisle. But Sarah's eyes weren't on Marcus yet. They were searching the crowd, and when they found me, her face lit up with the most beautiful smile. She mouthed, "Thank you," to me, before turning her attention to the man waiting for her at the altar. As I watched my daughter walk down the aisle toward her future, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about losing Sarah to Marcus. This wasn't about my role in her life diminishing. This was about celebrating the fact that the little girl I'd raised had grown into a woman of making her own choices capable and creating her own happiness. The ceremony was everything Sarah and Marcus had dreamed it would be. They'd written their own vows, and listening to them promised to support each other's dreams and respect each other's individuality. I understood why my interference had been so painful for them. They were building a partnership based on mutual respect, and I'd been undermining that foundation without realizing it. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the joy in the room was palpable. Sarah and Marcus kissed as everyone cheered, and I found myself crying tears of pure happiness, not for the wedding I'd envisioned, but for the one they'd created together. At the reception, I kept my promise completely. When I noticed the centerpieces were slightly askew on one table, I didn't straighten them. When the photographer seemed to be missing some obvious shots, I didn't point them out. When the caterer served the appetizers in a different order than I would have suggested, I simply enjoyed the food and the company, and something magical happened. Without the stress of trying to manage everything, I actually enjoyed myself. I danced with old friends, laughed at Marcus's father's jokes, and watched my daughter glow with happiness as she moved through the room as a new bride. During the father-daughter dance, David caught my eye across the room and smiled. Despite our divorce years ago, we'd managed to maintain a friendship for Sarah's sake. He walked over as the song ended. "She looks happy," he said, watching Sarah laugh at something Marcus whispered in her ear. "She does. They both do." "I heard about the uninvitation," David said quietly, "and I heard about the last-minute invitation back. I'm proud of both of you for working it out. I almost lost her because I couldn't let go," I admitted. "I kept trying to control things instead of trusting the person we raised her to be." David nodded thoughtfully. "Remember when she was 16? and wanted to quit piano lessons to join the debate team. I laughed, remembering. I was so upset. She'd been playing for 8 years, and I thought she was throwing it all away. But you let her make the choice. And she became captain of the debate team and got a scholarship to college because of it. Maybe parenting adults isn't so different from parenting teenagers. Sometimes the best thing we can do is step back and trust them. As the evening went on, I found myself talking to Marcus's family, really talking to them for the first time. His grandmother, the one whose favorite flowers were the lilies I'd tried to change, told me stories about Marcus as a little boy. His parents shared their hopes for the young couple's future. I realized I'd been so focused on protecting Sarah from potential mistakes that I'd missed the opportunity to genuinely get to know the family she was joining. Later, as the reception was winding down, Sarah found me sitting at a table with some of her college friends. "Mom, can we talk for a minute?" We walked out onto a small balcony overlooking the venue's gardens. The night air was cool and filled with the scent of jasmine. "I want to thank you," Sarah said, taking my hands in hers. "Not just for coming today, but for the way you came. You kept your promise completely. You were just my mom today, and it was perfect. It was your day, sweetheart. It should have been perfect, exactly the way you wanted it. I know this wasn't easy for you. I know you had opinions about things, and I saw you bite your tongue more than once." I laughed. "That obvious? Only to someone who knows you as well as I do. But Mom, that restraint, that respect for our choices, that was the greatest gift you could have given us." We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the last few guests move around inside. "I owe you an apology too," Sarah continued. "I should have talked to you about how I was feeling, instead of letting it build up until I exploded. Uninviting you was cruel, even if I was hurt and frustrated. You were protecting your wedding and your relationship. That took courage, and I respect that. I love you, Mom, and I want you to be part of our marriage, our future family. But I need to know that you trust me to make my own decisions, even when they're different from what you would choose." I squeezed her hands tighter. "I'm learning, sweetheart. These past few days have taught me more about being your mother than the past 26 years combined. I raised you to be strong and independent, and then I got scared when you actually became those things." "Why scared?" "Because if you didn't need my advice anymore, if you could make your own choices, what was my role supposed to be? I thought being a good mother meant having all the answers and protecting you from every possible mistake." Sarah smiled, the same smile she'd had as a little girl when she was trying to explain something important to me. "Mom, I'll always need you, just not the same way I needed you when I was 7. I need you to be proud of me, to support me, to love me unconditionally. I need you to be excited about my choices, even when they surprise you. I need you to trust that the values you taught me will guide me in the right direction." As we hugged on that balcony, I felt like I was saying goodbye to one version of myself and hello to another. The controlling, anxious version of Rachel was stepping aside to make room for someone who could love without managing, support without directing, and be proud without taking credit. "So what happens now?" I asked as we prepared to go back inside. "Now you get to be the mother of the bride at her reception, and tomorrow you get to start being the mother-in-law who trusts her daughter's choices. And if I slip up, if my old habits try to resurface," Sarah grinned, "then I'll remind you about today, about how much more beautiful everything was when you let it be what it was meant to be." As the reception continued, I watched Sarah and Marcus cut their cake. the simple two-tier vanilla creation I'd initially called too plain when they showed me the design. But seeing them feed each other that first bite, laughing as frosting ended up on Marcus's nose, I realized how wrong I'd been. The cake wasn't plain at all. It was them. Sweet, uncomplicated, genuine. I found myself studying other details I'd once criticized. The string quartet playing jazz standards instead of classical pieces. The mismatched vintage china they collected from thrift stores instead of renting uniform place settings. The photo booth with silly props that I'd thought was too informal for a wedding. Every single choice reflected who they were as a couple. And watching their guests enjoy these personal touches, I saw how much more meaningful their choices were than anything I would have suggested. Around 10 o'clock, as the evening was winding down, Marcus approached me while Sarah was saying goodbye to some out-of-town relatives. Mrs. Chen, Rachel, I wanted to talk to you about something. My stomach tightened reflexively, old habits making me brace for criticism or conflict. But Marcus's expression was warm, open. I know today couldn't have been easy for you. Stepping back, letting us have our day without trying to help or fix things. Sarah told me about your promise to her, and I saw you keep it all evening. It was the right thing to do, I said quietly. I should have done it months ago, maybe. But the important thing is, you did it when it mattered most. Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. I want you to know that I've never wanted to come between you and Sarah. She loves you so much, talks about you constantly. The stories she tells about growing up, about how you worked 2 jobs to put her through college, how you taught her to stand up for herself. You raised an incredible woman. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you for saying that. I mean it, and I hope that moving forward, we can build our own relationship. Not just you tolerating me for Sarah's sake, or me trying to prove I'm good enough for your daughter, but actually acting each other, to know each other, recipe. I looked at this young man who'd had every reason to resent me, who'd watched me undermine his decisions and question his choices for months. Yet here he was, extending an olive branch, offering friendship. I'd like that very much, I said. And Marcus, I owe you a real apology. I treated you like you weren't capable of making Sarah happy. And that was wrong. Anyone can see how much you love her, how much she loves you. I was so busy worrying about protecting her that I forgot to appreciate the man who was actually doing that job. Marcus smiled, the tension I'd grown used to seeing in his shoulders finally relaxing. She doesn't need protecting, you know. She's pretty capable of taking care of herself. I'm starting to figure that out. As the last guests filtered out, I helped Sarah gather her things, careful not to take over the process, but simply being present to help when asked. Her wedding dress bustled up for easier movement. She looked tired, but radiantly happy. Mom, thank you again for today. For everything. Thank you for giving me another chance. For teaching me how to love you better. David appeared beside us, jingling his car keys. Ready for me to drive you home, Rachel. Sometimes love means letting go of control and trusting the people we've raised. Sarah's wedding taught me that being a mother doesn't mean having all the answers. It means having faith in your child's choices. Now tell me, have you ever had to learn this lesson the hard way? Share your story in the comments below and let me know what city you're watching from.